Welcome back, 365 Sports. Ryan Andrade joins us now. And Ryan, it's been far too long. Oh, look, you've got a new backdrop from the last time I talked to you. Did you move, or did you just decorate?
We just had to do some decorating, If I was going to be back on here again, we had to spice it up a little bit. So.
All right. Well, looking great. Looking great, my man. So we are winding down the regular season of college basketball. Conference tournaments are starting. Big 12-wise, look, first off, let's talk. I know you're a Kansas guy. Is this what's more disappointing, last year Kansas or this year Kansas, given the amount that they spent on the roster to address a depth problem, which they still haven't, at least they're not running out of guys to play games like they were last year, but nothing's worked out how they thought it would.
Yeah, just coming in asking me the big questions right out of the gate. I like it. No, man, it's been tough this year. Last year, I think, you could at least blame, the injury to Kevin McCullough. I mean, he was, before he went down, probably going to be a first-team All-American, and they just didn't really have him healthy at all the second half of the year. So at least he had something to say here. This year, I mean, you look at the roster and, they've been largely able to avoid injuries. They've been pretty healthy. It just hasn't clicked, man. And, there's probably something to be said, the fact that, these last two seasons are, really the worst offensive seasons under Bill Self at Kansas. Hunter Dickinson, he puts up good numbers. You look at the stat sheet and it looks great. But when you actually sit there and watch the games, it's like the 12 rebounds he gets are the easiest 12 rebounds of the game. So he just doesn't seem to affect the game very much. He's pretty slow on his feet. He's not a great interior defender. DeJuan Harris and KJ Adams, they were great early on in their career when they could just be role players, and they had a lot more talent on the team along with them. But now that they're being asked to carry so much of the load, really, they've struggled to live up with that. And the transfers they brought in, yeah, you mentioned it. They paid a lot of money for this roster, and listen, I think maybe Bill Self is still adjusting to the way NIL and how college basketball works these days, and not having a guy be able to stay there for 4 or 5 years. But certainly the pieces they've gotten, while talented on their own, they certainly haven't fit together like I think he wanted.
Ryan, what do you think of the surge that BYU and Kevin Young have been on here?
Oh, yeah. They are absolutely one of the teams I'm definitely keeping an eye out to see where they fall in the bracket, because I think they have potential to make it a long ways. I really like this team. I mean, honestly, the expectations for them were, I don't really know what expectations you could have had. I mean, Mark Pope leaves for Kentucky and, brings a couple guys with him, and, Kevin Young, yeah, he has done an outstanding job with this team, and they are really playing their best basketball of late. I mean, they shoot the ball tremendously well. They got, plenty of size, and it's definitely a team that I'm looking forward to see where they shake out in the bracket.
Obviously, we'll talk about the SEC in a second. They're head and shoulders above everybody right now. They're just so dominant. Where do you think the Big 12 actually compares on them? Because they still have elite teams, some really good teams. Houston is elite. Iowa State's really good. Arizona can be fantastic if they decide to be on any given night. They've got good teams. Baylor and Kansas can even still turn it on. There are teams that are good in this league, but comparatively, collectively as a conference, could we see multiple deep runs, or is this going to be a tougher year for that?
I think there's plenty of possibility for that, honestly. I did mention BYU. Texas Tech is a team that when the season started, I was all over them. And, I thought they were going to be sort of a sleeper for the Final Four, and now they might be as much as a 3 seed. I mean, they just have so much talent. JT Toppin he's incredible. Some of the guys they've brought in as well. So I look at them, Houston, I don't think this Houston team has the same amount of talent they did the last couple of years with the Marcus Sasser and a Jamal Shedd there, but they just are so fundamentally sound. They just don't make mistakes, and they're they're going to rebound their minds off, and they're just a tough team to play against and beat. And if you would have told me that this Houston team would have gone 18-1 in the Big 12 this year, I could not have believed that for an instant. I mean, that what Kelvin Sampson has done this year is he should be in the Coach of the Year discussion, I believe. And but yeah, no, I mean, there's plenty of other teams too. Arizona, I think, is a little bit inconsistent. Iowa State, I think early in the season, there was a lot of guys that were saying they might be, in the mix with an Auburn or a Duke or somebody like that to win the title. I mean, you look at the roster and, they got 3 great guards and, a lot of size on the interior. They've struggled of late, but I still truly believe that, if they get everything right, they're fully capable of making a push to Elite Eight and maybe in the Final Four.
All right, so let's jump into the SEC. And Auburn and Janai Broome are so amazingly good most of the time. Now, they lost to A&M the other night. Bruce Pearl took a shot at the crowd because that's what Bruce Pearl does, even though there were a ton of people there. I don't know. He can't help himself. If not now, when for him? Because I don't know if he can build a team. I'm not knocking him, but everything is lining up for him. He's got the best player in the country. They've got depth upon depth. They're just so unbelievably talented.
Protect your online privacy with Nord VPN. Browse securely, access content from anywhere, and keep your data safe with military-grade encryption. Whether at home or on the go, NordVPN ensures your digital freedom. Stay secure. Download NordVPN today at nordvpn.com. That's NORDVPN.com.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the year for him. I mean, if it's not this year, he's not going to have a better chance to win it. I think to me, as I'm sort of sizing up this tournament, I think it feels very, very similar to last year when you had UConn and Purdue. And those are the 2 teams that everybody was talking about. They felt like they were the most complete teams. And really, that's what it feels like again this year with Duke and Auburn. I mean, Auburn, man, they brought back, a lot. And today's day and age, these good teams don't really bring back a lot. You brought back Janai Broome, Chad Baker-Mazara, Dylan Cardwell, Chris Moore. They got all kinds of depth across every single position. And, the freshman, Dahad Pettiford, has been amazing. Miles Kelly on the perimeter has given them, a different look there. And, man, if they certainly, I think they are truly the most complete team with the most experience. And I think you can't underestimate the fact that they're going to be coming into this pissed off after what happened last year when they lost to Yale in the first round. So, yeah, they are. I would not be surprised to see maybe kind of like a Virginia turnaround, lose to an 18 seed and then, go on and win it the next year, something like that.
When you look at the rest of the SEC, Tennessee is good. A&M is good. Kentucky is not quite there yet, but they're good. They're not going to have Kirk Kristen. I'm sure that's gonna hurt for them, down the stretch. Florida's very good. Georgia appears that they maybe made it in the tournament. Oklahoma was still kind of in it for a minute for a little bit. Do they have 5, 6, 7 teams you think that could make a Final Four run?
I think this conference, the SEC this year, has so many B-plus teams, I would say. I think there's only really 3 teams that I can actually see making the Final Four. That's Auburn, Florida, and Alabama. I think those 3 just they have the ability to just will their way to wins. I think, Florida is probably going underrated a little bit nationally. I think they're so talented. They got a lot of interior size who moves really, really well. That's really tough to play against. Walter Clayton is obviously just an outstanding scorer. Alabama, they made it there last year. They still got an incredible roster. Can they, win games, giving up 95 points? If anybody's going to do it, it's going to be them. I think, but, the rest of this conference, Tennessee, Texas A&M, both very poor executing in the half court. Missouri and Kentucky both really struggle to defend. Kentucky is going to be without Jackson Robinson for the rest of the year. There's a lot of teams that I think you compare them, and I know the hype all year has been SEC is going to have, the most teams ever in a tournament since, the Big East, I believe, had 11. But, I think there's a lot of teams up top in the Big 12 and the Big 10 that match up very well against a lot of these middle tier SEC teams.
There are 3 really good teams in the ACC in Duke, Louisville, and Clemson. But really, it's only like this is Duke's world, and the rest of them are living in it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think my only concern with Duke is the fact that the formula really hasn't been the freshman superstar rosters, right? It used to be that 10 years ago, but in recent years, a lot of these freshman-led teams have sometimes crumbled a little bit under the pressure in the tournament. So I'll definitely be watching them, see how they perform in the ACC tournament. I do really, really like the job that Clemson and Louisville have both done this year. We saw Clemson last year almost make it all the way to the Final Four. They brought back a lot from last year. They're a very efficient shooting team. Louisville, I mean, their turnaround has been incredible. They've lost 1 game since December 15th. I mean, Pat Kelsey has just done an unbelievable job turning them around. Chucky Hepburn, Wisconsin transfer, has been maybe the best perimeter defender in the country. A lot of the talk with the ACC has been, they've got, the ACC is so down. It's not what it used to have been. And yet we show up to March and, there's always 1 or 2 or 3 even ACC teams in the Elite Eight. So, while you could say maybe they don't get challenged the same way as the SEC or the Big 12 from a night in, night out basis, I mean, when it comes down to it, they're putting their best foot forward come March.
Yeah, certainly. So, I'm curious on there's always trends, when it comes to coach hiring and things like that. Luke Laux is going to be the coach at FSU. He's an NBA assistant. Jensen at Utah, NBA assistant, right? But he's bailing on the Mavs at the right time. Believe me, Utah's a much more fun place to be than the AAC right now. And then Kevin Young last year. Is this the new coaching trend in college basketball since they are, essentially a pro league in and of themselves with paying players, that NBA coaches are where they're going to look because that's maybe the recruiting model that they're doing, even though most of these guys right now don't have a ton of recruiting experience?
Yeah, it's tough to say, right? I mean, I think, for a lot of coaches that have been in this for decades, it's these last couple of years have really, really tested them. And, it's not as easy as it used to be. You thought, you come into the season and think, okay, I got, a couple freshmen here that are going to be sophomores, a couple of sophomores that are going to be juniors, and I'm all good here. But every single year, I think every coach has to basically recruit their entire team back, because you can just hop in the transfer portal if you're not starting or you're not, playing the position you want to play in, and just go to a completely different team. So, I don't know if that is obviously the trend that's happening. I don't know if it continues to go that way. There's definitely other places to watch for, incoming coaches or things like that. Oklahoma, I think, is kind of interesting. Porter Moser is right on the bubble. If he doesn't make it, he's 0 for 4 since he went to Oklahoma, which I think nobody would have really thought after, his great tournament runs at Loyola. So, there's definitely going to be some hot seats and some places to watch.
How close are you to feeling confident about, in a week and a half, we're going to fill out brackets, or 2 weeks now, about who you think can be legit from all across the country? Is there someone we're leaving out that we haven't talked about yet?
I did mention, Duke and Auburn. I feel like they're head and shoulders above the rest. I think if you go a little further down, there's a few maybe teams that wind up in that 4, 5, 6 range that I kind of like. I think Maryland has really come on of late. They've got an absolutely dynamic front court with Julian Reese, Derek Queen. They got a lot of good shooters on the perimeter. That would be a team I watch. I mentioned Clemson and Louisville as well. And I think, honestly, and this might be a crazy one, but, I would not sleep on UConn just yet. I mean, they've got the championship pedigree. Obviously,
we get the best effing coach in the game.
I mean, they do, right? I mean, he's going to let you know about it. And honestly, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch him as an underdog in a lot of these games. He's probably going to be in, I'm just thinking of a potential, 1-8 matchup between Duke and UConn or something like that. Like, could you imagine how the numbers that game would do in the second round? That would be incredible. I would love to see something like that.
Oh, that would be nuts. Yeah, that would be nuts. Absolutely. Well, Ryan Andrade, we'll have to – it's almost golf too. Like, we probably could be talking about golf all the time. I'm curious on your thoughts on the golf league. I'm enjoying watching it, even though half the time I forgot the sound off and I don't completely know what's going on.
Yeah, it's been cool, actually. No, I've been really dialed into it. I think it's so different than what you get, watching a Thursday through Sunday on the PGA Tour. You're getting some of the best stars in the game, just trying to figure out, how the simulator works and these weird, quirky shots they got to hit all around the green. You got people cheering, making noise. And it's been, I think for its first year, it's done, pretty much all it really needed to. And I think, being on ESPN as well has helped it. So, yeah, no, I've loved it. I'm getting excited here we got the Players next week, and then we got the Masters in, about a month. So, yeah, big things ahead for golf.
There we go. Ryan Andrade with us here on 365 Sports. Ryan, I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Sounds good, man.
There you go. Ryan Andrade.